But to Ita Buttrose, she gave a speech to a conference in London and she didn't think she was being quoted. But what's private these days? So I'll tut-tut that. But the fact is she was then quoted in the papers saying this about younger workers. She said, today's younger workers, they need much more reassurance. They're keen on being thanked and they almost need hugging. They seem to lack the resilience that I remember from my younger days. Now, I'm not sure whether she's talking about ABC staff or, which I suspect she was, or whether just speaking more generally. But to discuss this, I'm joined by Gemma Tognini, who's a columnist with the West Australian, and Fiona Scott, former Liberal MP and Government Relations Advisor. Gemma, I think you have employed the odd person or two, well, and the normal person or two over the years. Is this true that that younger workers are really vulnerable and probably need a cuddle?
Andrew, it is true, and I'll say, and I've been in business for 17 years and I've employed my fair share of millennials, and I would say from what I read of that coverage today, it's accurate. Having said that, if I could say it this way, the good ones know it about themselves. They're self-aware and are willing to sort of have those babied edges sort of, you know, sharpened off them. You know, they're parented differently. I mean, it is a societal reality, and you know, as an employer, when you're the one paying the bills, you get to set the culture. And I have been very fortunate to employ some incredibly talented people from that generation, the generation below mine, Andrew. But I will say this, the good ones, no other way to describe it, the good ones go, yeah, we're a bit soft. Yeah, we need a bit of a cuddle. You know, we joke about it. You don't get a participation medal for turning up and shock horror doing your job. I think what she said is true. It's acknowledged to be true because, Andrew, there is an entire industry that has been created around how to better engage with the emerging generations. And there's some truth to that. But bottom line is, I don't like the tail wagging the dog ever, and I certainly don't run my business that way. But yeah, there is truth to it, for sure.
Look, you say there's an entire industry about how to manage communications. Fiona, the industry that I'm worried about is the industry of victim politics. Now, every boss is walking on eggshells now, you know, not just the usual sexual harassment, but microaggressions and people looking to feel offended, actually looking actively to be offended, and then, you know, promotion or attention or maybe a payout, something like that. So I'm wondering, are the young really that much more sensitive, or have we developed a sort of legal and employment structure to reward the whingers over the doers?
Yeah, look, that's a really interesting way of putting it, Andrew. And I think there are two separate factors here, and I think they do collide at points, but there's elements where they're really different. Absolutely, there's a culture of victimhood where everybody just almost wants to be offended because there might be a payday at the end of it. But when we look at younger generations, I mean, it's probably been the age-old adage that those of us, and I hate to say this, approaching middle age or in middle age, look down at the young and go, oh,
nonsense,
my gosh.
Fiona, nonsense. I feel that I've got to do the obligatory nonsense middle age.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, like, you think of it, the war generation's beliefs of the baby boomers beliefs of Gen X, Gen X's views of Gen Y, even if you go all the way back to the 1920s, the flappers, I mean, they were also the generation, the flappers, that had turned around and rocked on up through depressions and wars and all sorts of things. So, look, I wonder whether there's an element here that maybe as we hit that middle age and we're a bit older and more wise, we look down on the youth and say, if only you got off your butt and you did these sorts of things. So, look, I think there's two things colliding here, but the damaging one and the scary one is the speed at which everybody wants to be offended, the speed at which everybody wants to mitigate someone else, and the fact that we're building a society which is, regardless of generation, about victimhood. How I'm a victim because of what happened in previous generations. I'm a victim because something happened to my mother, my father, my dog, my goat.
Or my race, or my this, or my that, you know. There was someone in the Sydney Morning Herald saying she was really offended by MasterChef today, you know, because the final didn't have the funnel it wasn't won by an Asian person, say, oh my God, I'm so offended, even though Asian people have won more of the MasterChef competitions than, I mean, people are so prone to offence. But the thing is, Gemma, there's a big change now, you know. This crisis, I reckon, has hit the young more than most. You know, a lot won't be getting a job for a long time, and if they do, it'll be a very insecure one. I think this will be such a cultural shift. I wonder how it's going to change people.
It's a really important question to ask. I weirdly had this conversation with someone the other day because I was explaining how when I graduated, and I don't care who knows how old I am, I just turned 47, and I don't care who knows it, Andrew, but I graduated university in 1993, and I was, you know, I remember expecting people to sort of fall over themselves to hire me because I've done very well in my degree and all that sort of stuff. But the reality of it was journalism jobs are never thick and fast anyway. But 1994, it was tough. And I spent a bit of time working for free in newsrooms while I bussed tables in a restaurant and cleaned houses and did odd jobs and, you know, kept myself running, basically. And you know, I'm grateful for that time because it built character and it built resilience and an appreciation for the job that I did eventually get. And that the idea that we can progress without a process is just naive. And I do believe that those in that job-seeking age, as we emerge from this, will have a choice. They'll have a choice to either say, I'm going to let this make me, or I'm just going to, you know, sit in my garage and eat cereal out of a box in my knickers. I don't know. But we don't get to choose in life what happens to us. It's a cliche, but it's true. We get to choose. We get to choose how we respond.
I think we're in a big cultural turning point here, Fiona. I've been saying to my kids, and it's not just, you know, grumpy dad, you know, who's turned 60 and is going to be, oh, the world, you know. But I reckon, in fact, we've had it better than a lot of kids will now get it. Like we could count on growth. We could count on buying a house that was reasonably affordable. Reason counted for something. Security there. Every year we got richer. None of that's happening now. No, I think kids are going to have it a lot tougher in the next decade or two, and I think there'll be a profound changing of things. And we won't be able to say, you know, we did it tough, we lived in a cardboard box, none like you. It's going to change.
Yeah, look, you're 100% right. And I think whilst we have a flaw in the economy of things like job seeker being elevated and, of course, job keeper as well, I don't think the youth know what's coming. And I think that's probably the biggest fear. And really the fact that some of these attitudes of, you know, I can live my dream. Well, you can live your dream, but getting your dream is going to be a lot of hard work. But there are elements of the economy that there is a lot of redundancy. There's a lot of fat. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of green tape. There's a lot of, you know, this offended economy and society that is not actually driving our economy forward. For the last few years, under 28 years of perpetual growth, we haven't dealt with these issues. And I think this sort of shaking out is actually going to force us to be a leaner and smarter economy. It's going to force us, like tonight, working through Skype, rethink how we work, rethink how we use digital technology. I'm actually optimistic about the future of Australia. I know the debt is frightening. I know all of those aspects, but here in Australia, we are in the box seat to be able to springboard out of this and reshape the country we need to be. And I think if we can focus on that point and we focus that our youth, sure, they're probably like us when we were young, but they're smart, they're dynamic, they're innovative. And if we invest in them and we push them in the right direction, I think what the government's going to do will leapfrog us forward. So, look, I think there's a lot to be pessimistic about.
But listen, Fiona, we're still looking at an unemployment rate of nearly 1 in 11 Australians out of work, and it's going to be the young that struggle. And I just think, you know, I think the government's got its eye on getting people into work, and that's good. But I think a lot of people are going to find it a long time before some of this, you know, they spring back into action too. And stick with it, kids. Gemma Fiona Scott, thank you so much indeed, both, for your time.
Thank you.